for you to deliver the restorations that you want. Before I move forward here, I have a question, and I'm going to place here a poll where I would like you to answer, okay? So the first question that I have is, what digital tools do you have in your practice? You can select one of these options. Do you have an intraoral scan and a 3D printer? Do you have just an intraoral scan, or do you rent the equipment when needed? So let's see what the questions are. All right, wonderful. Well, it seems here that 60% of you guys do have an intraoral scanner and a 3D printer. I see that 13% of you guys have the intraoral scan, and 30% use just rent the equipment when needed. Okay, and why do I have to know that? I want to make sure that I can deliver the best presentation so you can learn as much as possible according to your workflow, because that's what matters. It's to help you deliver the designs and the restorations according to the workflow that you already have here in your practice. So let me end this poll. And my second question is in regards to Smile Design itself. Do you consider yourself a Smile designer, or do you already create the Smile designs in your cases? Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I see here the majority of you guys are either learning how to become a Smile designer and already perform Smile designs in your practice. I see here that 18% of you guys have not done yet, have not started with Smile designs. All right, then. Independently, if you already start your Smile design or if you are already in the process of a Smile design, it's very important for us to first understand how to deliver a comprehensive treatment plan to our patients. If we look at the cases, the patients that come into our practices, you most likely have a multidisciplinary type of case. But when it comes to Smile design itself, when it comes to transforming these Smile designs into final restorations, it is imperative that you first understand certain topics to deliver the right treatment plan to your patient. One of them is, of course, to understand the patient's desires. Sometimes, I mean, if you are a dentist, you know what I'm saying. Sometimes the patient comes with some sort of idea of what they want, and sometimes it's just like absolutely not possible. Other times the patient come in with an idea of having somebody else's smiles, and we know that in order to get into that phase, the patient must go through a sequence of treatments to be delivered the desired treatment. So the very first step to understand our patient's mindset is by responding it back with a visual communication. And we will go over here what we call a smile simulation. Then, of course, it's very important to also include your patient's facial structures to deliver these natural-looking restorations. And when I say the facial structures, you will see later in this webinar that we have in the software a AI smile analyzer. Basically, this smile analyzer will automatically set up some landmarks in the patient's face that will help you identify some errors. For example, some inverted smile, some shifted midline, and so forth. On the dental analysis, when we do the comprehensive dentistry, it also helps us to understand if we should increase the length of the restoration, or if we should just keep the same length, maybe change the shape of the restoration itself. And integrating all these together, you are able to deliver a more aesthetic and functional treatment plan to your patient. The Smile design itself doesn't work by itself. It doesn't work alone. You must comprehend what the patient is looking for, along with the clinical findings, to deliver these facially generated treatment plan to your patients. So when you have these four mindsets in your treatment plan, you will be able to deliver a more solid treatment. The patient will be able to have a clearer vision of the treatment itself. And then, of course, since the patient already knows, has the expectations met, of course, the patient will also be very happy, very, very satisfied with the workflow itself. So let's go ahead here and go into stages, all right? So today we're going to go over 4 different stages, with the first stage being the patient digitalization, the second stage being the actual 3D design, and the third stage, it's when you would do the Smile trial and perform this Smile trial, and I will tell you later why it's so important for you to do it. And then, of course, perform the final restorations. So beginning with the first appointment, whenever you have your patient coming in, I see that most of you guys already have an intraoral scan, you guys have a 3D printer. It is very important that along with the clinical exam, that you also take a picture, a facial photograph of your patient. Why? Because when you add the patient's facial structures, it will already give you some hints, like some ideas of the patient's existing smile and how you can transform that smile. Lately, I've been studying a lot about orthodontics, and wow, like it's such an amazing profession, because they do study a lot when it comes to the facial integration with the smile. And if you are an implantologist like me, if you're a general dentist like me, you know that these features, these facial features of the patient will add a lot into the treatment itself that you are planning. With the software, if you don't know how to take these pictures, the software has what we call an AI picture capture, which means that you simply position the iPhone in front of your patient's face, and it will automatically take the picture for you. But one thing that it's important to know about these picture taking is that you must pay attention to the facial ungulation of this picture. It's pretty common to see the dentist taking a picture of the patient while the patient is sitting in a dental chair, and I do not recommend you to do that. The reason why, it's because the patient's head probably will be in a wrong position, either tilted down or tilted up, and that will give you a wrong information when it comes to designing your smile and treatment planning your cases. Let's take a look here at these 3 pictures, for example. On the left side, we have a patient with a natural head position. The eyes are looking straight at the lens of the camera, and the patient is giving a big wide smile. Notice that you're able to visualize the patient's ears, you're able to visualize the balance, the parallelism and balance of the patient interpupillary line and commissural line. But when you look at the pictures on the left and in the middle, you will notice that with the chin down, the smile curvature will just be very narrow, which could probably give you a wrong information of the patient's teeth proportions and smile curvature. And the same thing happens when you're taking a picture and you're not paying attention to the patient's chin position, where you could bring a flat smile or even an inverted smile to your treatment plan, giving you wrong information to yourself and to your lab when you send this information for them to manufacture the final veneers, for example. A very important step that you will be learning here today is to identify and connect the dental facial structure of your patient to deliver these treatments. In the software, you will be able to use an AI dental facial analysis. So as I was talking about before, the interpupillary line, the commissural line, the dental midline, and facial midline of the picture, when you transfer that information into the software, you automatically will be able to visualize these landmarks and have a better decision on delivering a more natural looking restoration. In this case, the case I will be designing today, you will notice that the patient has somewhat like a canted smile. But if the patient is just talking to you, most likely he will not see it, he will not visualize it. But if you are showing him through a digital smile design application and then showing him this dental facial analysis, they will be able to better understand why sometimes they need to go through an XY treatment before getting to the final, the Z treatment plan. So first appointment, make sure that along with the clinical exam, take a picture of the patient. Second, do an intraoral scan of your patient. All right, so it's an upper and lower intraoral scan of your patient's smile. We are here talking about different types of treatment plan. Let's say that the patient has proper occlusion. It's a class 1 of occlusion. The patient does not have the teeth worn down. Perfect patient for veneers, for example. In that case, you would scan upper and lower and scan the bite in MIH position. But now, if you are going to increase the video, for example, then it's important that you scan the upper, lower, find the new video, okay, manually. You can use a jig, for example, place it in the patient's mouth, and then you scan that space, okay? And then that space will be used to design the restorations that you want in the digital smile design application. So first, picture. Second, intraoral scan. Well, Dr. Diogo, but I don't scan my patients on the first visit. An intraoral scanner is here to help you better diagnose your patient's current conditions. If you have an intraoral scanner in your practice, start using it in every consultation. I mean, why not? Oh, I don't have time. Then look for a schedule, make sure that you can squeeze some time to scan the patient, because the intraoral scan will help you better treatment plan once the patient comes back to the SMILE trial. So here, during the first consultation, there is a feature in the software that allows you to create a quick smile simulation. Basically, a smile simulation is just a design over the patient's photograph. It doesn't have any clinical value, but for a draft of the patient's smile, for the patient to understand what the treatment is coming, what kind of treatment is coming, you will be able to deliver it in just 1 minute. So over here, I'm going to share my screen. And I will show you here very quickly how you can also design these 2D smile simulations. So you will open the SmileFy software, and that can be done on your iPhone, iPad, or MacBook. You will take the picture of the patient, and you will click on AI Smile Simulation. The software is very intuitive, as you can see. So over here, let me first show you guys the case itself. Over here, as you can see, we have a patient with a flat smile curvature. Here on the centrals, we have composite restorations. The buccal, the premolars are slightly too buccal, which is just like not creating enough buccal corridor spacing here. So what we can do to talk to our patient is to create a AI smile simulation. See over here on the right side, all I have to do is to use these sliders where you can change height, proportions, Then over here, I can also shift my midline, extend or not when it comes to the buccal corridor. Visualize here the facial dental analysis powered by artificial intelligence. This basically, as you can see here, we have the interpupillary line, the commissural line, and it helps us to visualize if the patient's smile is canted in accordance with the patient's interpupillary line, for example. The next step, you tap on AI smile simulation. The software will give you 4 different smile designs ready for you to look at. Then you can maybe change the colors if you like. And that's it. So basically, on the first consultation, with the patient photograph, with your clinical exam, and with your intraoral scan, along with a smile simulation, you will be a par with the patient's expectations, and you'll be able to better understand how to proceed with the treatment itself. So look over here. This is something that you can show to your patient. Again, on a first consultation, you can do it chair side, have them excited about the upcoming stages of the treatment. And for you, you have a better understanding of what your patient is looking for. So the patient goes home, and now it's a time to start to create the 3D smile design in office. I see that most of you guys have a 3D printer in office as well. We will talk about how you can just export it straight to your office, to your 3D printer in your office, but I'll also show you how you can send it to your lab. All right, so here in our 3D planning, now that you have collected the patient simulation, the clinical findings, the digital records, you have all the necessary material to begin your 3D walks-up. So in this case here, for example, we are planning to do porcelain veneer restorations. We already took the shade, which is a BL3, and it's going to be an Emax from upper premolar to premolar. Patient is a class 1 restoration, and we know that we are going to be increasing the incisal edge by about 1.5 to 1.8 millimeter. Okay, this is also super important for you to proceed with your 3D smile design. It's very important that with all this information, you collect it and you begin the 3D design with ease. So here, let me share my screen once again. All right, so with our 3D smile design, how does that work? After you scan your patient's mouth, you can upload the files straight into the software, okay, into your iPad, into your MacBook, into your iPhone. And once you have these files in there, you will set 3 points on the STL and 3 points on the picture so that the files can superimpose and you can begin the 3D design. Then the second step, it's basically the pre-planning of your 3D smile mockup. So here, as you can see, we have what we call a smile frame. And this smile frame goes around the patient's arch. It's this green semicircular line. And basically, it just shows you where the position of the incisal edge and the buccal cusps of the future 3D design will be placed. And with it, we have the 3D smile frame, which will basically be the base for your 3D dental Mockup. It basically tells you the proportion and the height of the future dental Mockup. We have here this line. So basically here at the very bottom line, which is in light blue, it's represented by the smile curvature, or where the incisal edges will be placed. And the one on the top, it's where the cervical margin will be positioned. Over here on the left, on the right side, you can always make any adjustments. Let's say you want to increase the length a little bit, or you want to change the proportions, you can always do that, as well as to adjusting the curvature of that smile. The next step, you simply select the number of units that you want for a dental Mockup. In this case, we know that we are going to do from second premolar to second premolar. And once you select it, your dental Mockup will be here. All right, so basically that's how you create a 3D Mockup. Very simple steps. You upload the patient's digital files into the software. You will then calibrate these files, select the number of units that you want for a dental Mockup, to then begin the aesthetic portion of your 3D dental Mockup. If you look over here in the top left corner, we have a couple of different workflows that you can follow. In this case, our first step is to deliver a smile trial. Why? Because we want to make sure that the patient's smiles is the one that the patient actually wants. Over here, we go with Mockup and shells. And you'll be able to find several 3D teeth templates where you can choose and try on different ones simply by clicking on it. You're also able to adjust the design according to your planning. As you can see here, for example, I am now adjusting this premolar. And then here as well. In the smile analysis section, the software lets you go through the dental facial analysis once again, if you like. But you can also set the measurements of your dental Mockups. So in our clinical exam, we wanted to increase the length by about 1.5, 1.8. So he's about 1.4. So I can simply click on the teeth. And then increase the length just a little bit so that I can meet the planning that I'm making for this case. A very nice feature that I like, it's called the mesh editor. Basically, the mesh editor will allow you to make any small corrections into your case. Let's say that you want to make sure the cervical margins are in the right position. Let's say that you want to remove any excess in the interproximal margin or in the palatal margin, for example. Okay. Or if you want to make any like small corrections, as you can see over here, you simply tap on the tooth. And make the modifications according to your planning. Okay. Here you can change the opacity. I think this is also very nice for you to see the margins itself. See if you're going over the margin or if you're placing it as close as possible to the cervical margin. If I zoom in, notice that the mamelon, the grooves, sorry, not the mamelons, but the grooves, the lobes, everything is already here because everything has, I mean, all these 3D teeth have a natural shape. Here in this premolar section, I can simply remove all the excess. Okay, just so you know, I'm using my Apple pencil. Okay, so I'm just brushing it off. But you can use your mouse as well if you're using the MacBook. Now let me bring it back. Look over here, check on the occlusions side, and hit apply. Okay, so when I hit apply, then every small changes that I made will be saved. And my model is ready to be printed. Well, let me just show you here something. You can also create a smile simulation using the 3D mockup. So not only with the smile simulation with the photo, but also with the 3D mockup. Oops, let me just make it this brighter. Which is a very nice way for you to see how the design is looking so far as you are 3D designing it. All right, so as I said, the design is done. It would take you maybe like 15 minutes to go from uploading the files, calibrating the files, to then presetting that frame and selecting the teeth design to finalize the design. And then over here on the right side, you see here that we have preset. We have several options that you can 3D print. We will begin with our mockup. So I simply click on mockup, and it will automatically generate a 3D file for me to 3D print. Now, if you have your 3D printer in your practice, you can also send straight to your 3D printer if you have a 3D printer that we have a partnership with. But if you're sending it to your lab for them to print, Over here, you can hit export and then send it directly to your lab. So let me just go back here to my screen. So if you do have one of these 3D printers, Aziga, Carita, NextDen, Envision Tech, SprintRay, Formlabs, we do have a direct connection with these 3D printers. If you do have a printer, but it's not one of these ones here, it's fine. You can still export the case and then just send it to your 3D printer as you would normally do. All right, then. So we have here our model that we just 3D printed. Let's call the patient in and let's place the mock-up on this patient. So when you're placing the mock-up, in this case over here, we used a silicone index and a bisacryl. That one is from 3M brand. And one thing that you have to notice here is how the gingival margins look like and how the cervical margin looks like when I deliver the dental mock-up. Okay, and this is something that you have to always pay attention to. I see that some doctors, they tend to place the mock-up and they only care about the incisal edges on how this might look, from far. But if you are 3D planning a case and you want to transform your smile designs into final restorations, the dental mock-up needs to look like a final restoration. And that's why when I was designing, I was using that mesh editor to do those final editings, because that will give you the chance to 3D print a model that will look like this. So with a bisacryl, let me just go back here. Notice that we have these cuts, right in between the gingiva. That's kind of like a trick that you can use to facilitate the removal of the excess of this bisacryl. And when you place the dental wax up, what do you have to do? Let's say that you did the mock-up, patient loves it. Make sure that you check on the patient's occlusion and make sure that you do the functional guidances. Lateral guidances, pertussive guidance. Make sure that you do that. And if there's any interference, get a Softflex and remove all the excess that you want. If you have to add a little bit of composite in here, you wouldn't just restart the 3D design. You would just move forward. So get a flowable composite, add the flowable composite wherever you need to, light cure it, do a little polishing, and have your functional mock-up ready. Why? Because you will be scanning that functional mock-up to send it to your lab. Let's go back here for a second. You 3D designed your case. The 3D design is a digital version of your final restoration, a 3D version. But once you print the model and place in the patient's mouth, you are bringing it into a 4-dimensional type of environment because the patient's mouth moves. Patient moves to the left, to the right. We have the tongue. We have the lips. So it is imperative that after you do the functional adjustment, you scan the patient once again, because now you have the functional diagnostic wax-up. I know that a lot of dentists, they like to try to use the vertical articulator, and that's amazing. We will go over that later. But nothing compares to the patient's mouth. This is a real copy. It's a blueprint of the patient's functional mastication. So with the aesthetics that you already checked in 3D and with the functional and aesthetics that you already did in the patient's mouth, you will be able to send the right information to your dental lab, okay? All right, so once you scan your patient's mouth, let's now prep over the mock-up that you just adjusted. This mock-up will allow you to be minimally invasive when it comes to the teeth preparation. Of course, it will vary from what type of restoration that you are creating. Is it a Veneer? Is it a veneer? Is it an Emax? Is it zirconia? What kind of restoration are you planning? Or it also depends on the teeth shade. What is the substrate shade that the patient has? Is it too dark? If it's too dark, maybe you have to prep a little bit more. If it's not, then you can be more conservative. And also, it helps you to preserve the enamel. As we know, the adhesion is better on the enamel in comparison with the dentin. So by using the mock-up and using a depth cutter burr that you see here on the right side, you will be able to be more conservative into your treatments. So the mock-up that you first created will then become a functional biocopy of the final restoration and a prep guide for your veneers. Once you prep these teeth, then you can get that very first mock-up that you printed and use it as a temporary. So as you can see here, we have the patient happy. He already has a biocopy of the finals. He's going home happy. Basically here, let's go back once again. You have a 3D dental wax-up that you created that was facially driven, that was 3D printed in your practice. You then exported, did a smile trial, patient loved it, made the necessary functional adjustments, prepped over that mock-up so you can continue that conservative treatment and use the same model to become the temporaries. The patient now goes home and you have now the right files to send to your lab so the lab can deliver the dental veneers that you created, that you designed it, first designed it. So over here, let's go over this slide and let's look at the files that you would need to send to your lab in order for him or her to manufacture these final veneers. The patient's photographs. So of course, the before picture, the picture with the mock-up, it's also important. And any other type of photograph they would like to insert in this treatment. The dental wax-up that you scanned. The 3D teeth that you selected. So right over here, you'll find the 3D teeth that you can export from SmileFy. So let's say, well, Dr. Diogo, I did this entire workflow, but my lab does not have the teeth shape that I selected here in SmileFy. No worries. You will export those 3D teeth shape as well, and he will be able to have it so he can continue with the workflow that you created. Then, of course, the measurements, the scan prep, the shade of the substrate, the shade of the desired veneers, and what type of material you would like to have, Emax, feldspathic, etc. So here, what are you sending to your lab? You're sending a very organized material to better collaborate with your dental lab. I see that, and I include myself, like years ago when I did not know how to proceed with my lab work, with my workflows. It would always be this back and forthness with the lab. They would not know exactly what I was doing, or the communication, just like writing it down would not be enough. Here, you have all the necessary information, and most importantly, you have the teeth shape. You have the functional mock-up that you blueprinted by scanning it into the patient's mouth. So all that the lab needs to do is to put it all together and send you back the veneers that you are going to be inserted in the patient's teeth. All right, so once the patient's veneers arrive, then you would proceed with the procedure that you already know from XYZ type of restoration. In this case here, it's all Emacs BL3. And here we have a video, let me see. Oh, there you go. Where I show here the before, the patient with the mock-up, and the patient with the final restoration. One thing that I forgot to mention was in regards to this video. I like to record the patient's face while counting from 60 to 69. And by speaking some phonetic words with an S sound, F sound, T sound, to see how the tongue is working with the diagnostic mock-up that I'm creating. Why? Because I want to make sure that the mock-up that we created in office, when it's transformed into final restorations, will be acting exactly how I planned. So creating a video here of your patients with the diagnostic mock-up will definitely help you out also on your treatment workflow. All right, so then here we have it. This is a summary of what you can do from stage 1 all the way to the end, going from patient digitalization on the first consultation by doing photo, intraoral scan, SMILE simulation. Then you do the 3D design to select the natural shapes with SmileFy. Most of the features are powered by the artificial intelligence, which will facilitate the workflow, making it much simpler for you to do it in 4 simple steps. You export and 3D print. Then when you 3D print it, you can do the functional adjustments, do the phonetic adjustments, and scan this SMILE trial, prep over it, send it all to your lab so they can send you back the final restorations. Just as a reminder, all of our SmileFy members, they have this library, and all these teeth, they can be exported and added into any other software. So even if your lab is working with another type of software, they will be able to work with the teeth design that you are selecting here on SmileFy. And another important feature is that you can check on the thickness. I know I showed you only the height, right? The height proportions, but you can also check the thickness of your dental wax-up. And that will help you to define how much you should prep and what kind of burr you should prep for your dental veneers. But let's say, Dr. Diogo, and I'm just going to now summarize here with a couple of other cases. But let's say that veneers is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for another type of dental treatment, or I just want to show my patient a smile design. I want to just like bring in a motivational mock-up. In that case, it's even simpler, because all you have to do is to add the patient's files, and the software will automatically place this 3D teeth over the patient's intraoral scan. You export and print. Right? So here's before. Here are the files inside of the software. You export and perform a SMILE trial. Look over here, for example, this patient, actually, she didn't even come for a SMILE makeover, but because I saw the quality of her smile, I knew that I had to show her something. I knew that I had to move forward and give her the chance to see herself with a different smile. So a motivational mock-up is that type of design that you can quickly do, maybe like in 7-8 minutes, print, and then perform for the patient to accept better the treatment that you are proposing. Static prep guide, which we already discussed it. Over here, it's where you place the teeth. Let's say that sometimes you have a teeth that are slightly flared or rotated, and you want to do minor changes to have a better contouring of these, let's say composite veneers or porcelain veneers. You can digitally prep these intraoral scans and design over it. For composite veneer restorations, what I really love about the software is that it automatically gives you those two models. So for those who perform injectable composite veneers, look over here. Once you design and you export, it will generate two exports, one with the full design and one with just the odd or even teeth. That way you can inject the flowable composite and make it simpler. I know that there are some countries that labs are charging a lot to deliver these injectable composite models. If you're doing with the software, you're doing in-house, so you're not spending any money on it. So that is a huge benefit for you to create a very affordable type of cosmetic treatment to your patient while doing it all in your practice. I saw that most of you guys have 3D printer, you have a scanner, so all you need now is a software that will allow you to deliver these restorations and become even more profitable when delivering this final. For 3D lower design, as I was mentioning before, it is imperative that you check the video, make sure that you have the proper spacing to design the lower design, but you can also do it. 3D shells, which are those very thin veneer layers. Some people call it the snap-on smile, others call it just, 3D shells. But basically, this is a great way for you to use it as a temporary, use it as a motivational design for the patient, use it as a guide. You know what I like to do with this one here? Let's say that you have a gingivectomy or gingivoplasty. You just want to change the contouring. You can quickly design and export those 3D shells and then place over the patient's gum and teeth and go with your instrument and a laser or any other type of instrument and perform the gingivectomy according to your planning using the 3D design that you created. Here's another 3D anterior veneer design done from a doctor from Miami. Here's a doctor from South Africa doing injectable veneers. Here's a case where everything was planned in the software from the gingivectomy, stage 1, all the way to the final veneers, stage 2. So all you can do here in the software from start to finish can be done as long as you have the proper mindset, the holistic mindset to deliver these facially generated treatment plans. All right, so I want to thank you guys for being here in this webinar today. And if you have any further questions, please connect with us by either sending us an email or calling us or following us on our social media.